concept many individuals are familiar with. At a young age, many of us were taught how to say no to illegal substances, while the truth is, not all people follow these lessons their whole lives. And failure to listen to these valuable lectures could result in prison time. If you ask yourself about that one time you used an illegal substance that could have landed you in prison, then you are absolutely right. It could be for multiple years. Speaking from personal experience, I have seen kids that partake in doing drugs at my own school, and getting caught once could end everything for them. The truth of the matter is that the smallest amount of drugs could result in you spending a portion of your life in our prison systems. It is not uncommon to use illegal substances either. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, in 2017, 30.5 million people aged 12 or older used an illicit drug in the past 30 days. The prison sentences for minor drug offenses around the United States is absurd and needs to be dramatically reduced. Today I will be discussing how what you may think is harmless fun could turn into a prison sentence very quickly. I'm going to be discussing a little background about the way our judicial system is run. There are two different types of crimes, misdemeanors and felonies. Misdemeanors are the lesser of the two crimes, meaning you receive a shorter sentence. This typically means under a year in prison, while felonies are generally over a year in prison. Minor drug offenses are usually classified as a misdemeanor. There are three classes of misdemeanors. The first degree being the worst with the highest fines attached. Second, also with fines attached, and the criminal could face up to a year in prison. Lastly, third degree with the least amount of prison time attached. Some first-degree multi-offenders may face increased sentencing to the felony level. Due to the escalation of these offenses, minor drug offenses could quickly turn to a felony charge. These prison sentences have become increasingly larger. One reason that led to these ludicrous consequences for being charged with possession is the tough on crime era. During the 1980s, many cops' first priority was locking up anyone with an illicit substance. There were many drug lords present during the time, like Pablo Escobar and El Chapo, and they had connections everywhere. So law enforcement decided they needed to do something about it. Their conclusion was to crack down anyone possessing an illegal drug. This way of thinking led to more people put behind bars for any drug offense than the number of people who were in prison or jail for any crime in 1980. People are in prison due to the local police forces everywhere, attempting to win an unbeatable war, the war on drugs. Due to the amount of drug offenders in prison, it has led to prisons becoming overcrowded. According to the Bureau of Prisons, 45.5% of all inmates in prison across the U.S. are due to drug offenses. This high level of offenders have only caused more problems for our prison systems. Looking at prison overcrowding worldwide, data suggests that the number of prisoners exceeds the official prison capacity in at least 115 countries, with El Salvador, a U.S. territory, at 310% occupancy. This quote proves that many places, including the United States, are struggling with this epidemic. The reason for El Salvador's insanely high occupancy rate correlates to the United States' war on drugs, since it was primarily located in Latin America. The overcrowded prisons in the U.S. only bring along more consequences. When a convicted criminal is sent to an already overcrowded prison, they are almost immediately stripped of all basic needs, simply due to the fact that the prison cannot provide the essentials to the inmate. Most prisoners do not have the minimum space requirements. Overcrowding can be so severe that prisoners sleep in shifts or on top of each other, share beds, or tie themselves to window bars so that they can sleep while standing. The conditions that inmates are subject to are outrageous. The purpose of jail is to retribute, incapacitate, deter, and rehabilitate criminals. A main point being to rehabilitate criminals, which they cannot do with such harsh living conditions. There are many organizations attempting to solve this problem and reforms starting to follow. Although I have given a lot of evidence proving that prison sentencing for misdemeanor possessions is harmful to our country, former DEA officer Joseph Keith has a different approach to the situation. He believes that convicted criminals are receiving the correct forms of consequences for their actions. The fines should not be lowered. Fines can be a deterrent for preventing crime. Although he also professed his belief in the rehabilitation for each inmate. Being a DEA agent during the tough on crime era, he was trained heavily on following leads and catching the criminal. Taking down big-time drug lords was his job. He did not deal with the misdemeanor offenses as often. I believe his experience has given him insight that most people do not have, so it's harder for us to understand. With change and reform, Keefe believes that it is important to have an alternative option instead of jail time. Due to the nature of his job, he is influenced by his experience in the field. There has been a lot of controversy on this issue for a while now. Whether you believe our prison system is corrupt or not, there is change coming. Politicians have begun to petition for reform. Recently, there has been speculation of a new bipartisan bill by the Senate. The proposal will allow for shorter prison terms and more judicial discretion in sentencing, unwinding some of the tough-on-crime policies that have swelled the federal prison population. This new bill would be a big step towards releasing those imprisoned due to misdemeanor drug offenses. With reform, it is possible to end the sentencing oppression.